When they're giving you weather information, weather reports and forecasts, the ceiling is the height above the Earth's surface of the lowest layer of clouds or obscuring phenomena that is either broken or overcast and not called thin or partial. Now here we've got three different cloud layers. We've got a lower scattered layer, we've got an intermediate broken layer, and we've got a higher overcast layer. The lower layer, let's say, is reported at 500 feet scattered, the middle layer is 800 feet broken, and the top layer is 1100 feet overcast. The issue is which of those cloud layers constitutes a ceiling. Well, a scattered layer is not a ceiling, so it is not that 500-foot scattered layer. And they'll try and trick you with that on the written exam. The ceiling is the lowest layer of clouds or obscuring phenomena like smoke or smog, something like that, that is reported as broken or overcast. So the 800-foot broken, the 1100-foot overcast, which one of those is the ceiling? The 800-foot broken, because it is the lower of those two cloud layers, provided it is not called thin or partial. You can have a partial obscuration like when you have smog or smoke or fog, or you could have a thin cloud layer, and if it's thin or partial, it would not constitute a ceiling. Take a look now at Figure 12. And in Figure 12, what you'll see is surface observations for 5 different airports around the country. These are our hourly weather observations at different airports. Now, the surface observations can either be METARs, as they are for KINK, the Wink Airport up here. That is your routine hourly weather report. Or they may be, as they are for the bottom airport, JFK in New York, a SPECI, and a SPECI is a special aviation weather report. Notice that the identifiers on these airports start with K. We have KINK, which is Wink, KBOI, which is Boise, Los Angeles, Chicago Midway, and New York's JFK Airport. The K in front of the regular 3-letter identifier indicates that it is a U.S. airport. Now let's take a look at that report for KJFK and take a look at the time and date on that report. The date and time is the information right after the airport identification. They tell you what day that observation was taken on, in this case the 12th day of the month, and then they tell you the time it was taken at, in this case 1853 Zulu. Now, the order of the weather information itself that you're going to see goes like this. First, you'll see the wind. Then you'll see the visibility. Then you'll see significant weather. Significant weather is stuff that is blowing around in or falling out of the sky. Basically, it's precipitation or obstructions to visibility. Then you'll see cloud cover, then temperature and dew point given to you in degrees C. Then the altimeter setting, which will be preceded by a letter A, and finally remarks. Now, not all of them will be there every time. For instance, there may not be any significant weather, any precipitation or obstructions to visibility, and there may not be any remarks. But that's the order they'll be in if those elements are there. So let's take a look back at the JFK report, KJFK, and let's take a look at the wind information. The wind is the first group of information after the date and time group, and the wind is given to you with 5 digits. The first 3 digits are the wind direction, 180, 180 degrees, and that's relative to true north. And the last 2 digits are the wind velocity, in this case 4 knots, and you know it's in knots because it says so right there with the KT. So at JFK, they observed a wind from 180 degrees true at a velocity of 4 knots. Sometimes, however, the wind can be gusty. Take a look at the top observation, the one for KINK. The wind grouping there is a little bit more complicated. The wind here is from 110 degrees at a velocity of 12 knots, but it is gusting, the G for gusting, to a velocity of 18 knots. So at Wink, the wind's from 110 at 12 knots, gusting to 18 knots. Now, in order to know whether a particular airport is reporting VFR weather or not, we need to know the definition of the ceiling. Ceiling is the height above the Earth's surface of the lowest layer of clouds that is reported as either broken or overcast, or if there's a vertical visibility into an obscuration that's reported there. There's no such term as thin clouds, but the ceiling is the lowest layer of clouds that is either broken or overcast. In addition to having a 1,000-foot ceiling for VFR, we also need to have at least 3 statute miles visibility. So the FAA will give you those observations in our group of hourly observations and ask you which of these airports are reporting VFR weather conditions. So what we need to do is look at the visibility and the cloud cover and see which ones have at least 3 statute miles visibility and at least a 1,000-foot ceiling. Starting at the top, when we take a look at Wink, it's reporting 15 statute miles visibility and the sky is clear. So that's very clearly, very definitely VFR weather. For Boise, the second one, we have 30 statute miles visibility and we have a scattered layer of clouds, STT for scattered, at 15,000 feet. Again, good VFR conditions. For Los Angeles, we have 6 statute miles visibility reported. The BR stands for mist. Think of it as baby rain. It's kind of like fog, but not nearly as low a visibility. BR for mist or baby rain. And scattered clouds at 700 feet with another scattered cloud layer at 25,000 feet. You add 2 zeros to the numbers that you see here for the cloud heights. Now we do have a scattered layer here at 700 feet, but is that a ceiling? No, it is not a ceiling because it needs to be broken or overcast in order to be a ceiling. And these heights, of course, are above ground. They are above the airport elevation. These 3 airports are all reporting VFR weather conditions: Wink, Boise, and Los Angeles. Let's take a look at the weather for Chicago Midway, KMDW, and see what they're reporting. When you take a look at KMDW and go over to the visibility, we have 1 1/2 statute mile visibility, considerably less than the 3 miles that we would need for VFR, so this airport is not VFR. RA stands for rain. This is the significant weather that is occurring. We have some precipitation in the form of rain, and we have an overcast cloud layer at 700 feet. Because it's overcast, it constitutes a ceiling, and because that ceiling is less than 1,000 feet, again, that's another reason, in addition to the 1 1/2 statute miles of visibility, why that airport is IFR. And the visibility is 1 1/2 statute miles in rain. It is not 11 variable to 2. It's 1 1/2. Let's take a look now at the KJFK, the Kennedy, New York report, and take a look at their visibility and ceiling. That's the last of the observations. Their visibility is pretty lousy. It's only 1/2 statute mile. Their significant weather is fog. That's an obstruction to visibility. Then they're giving the runway visual range on runway 4. This is a way of measuring the visibility for IFR operations, and the runway visual range on runway 4 is 2,200 feet. That really should come right after the 1/2 statute miles and before the fog, but it's still all the visibility information pretty close there. Then we've got a cloud layer, overcast skies at 500 feet. Remember, you add 2 zeros to whatever number you see there. So the Kennedy report is not particularly good either, and that is definitely not VFR weather conditions. Let's finish off the Kennedy report and see what else the information is. Well, the next thing we've got is the temperature and the dew point. The temperature is 20 degrees C. The dew point is 18 degrees. 20 degrees C is about 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and a dew point of 18 degrees C is about 64 degrees Fahrenheit. The A tells us that the next item is going to be the altimeter setting, and you put a decimal point in the middle of those 4 digits. So the altimeter setting is 30.0. 06, and that's what you would put in your altimeter if you were departing from Kennedy Airport in New York. Let's take a look back at the Midway report, the second one from the bottom, and take a look on the far right-hand end of that first line at the remarks section, because we do have a remark at Midway Airport. It's the only one that has one, and when we come over to the left to read what that remark is, it says RAB 35. RA stands for rain, B stands for began, and the 35 is the time it started. It started at 35 minutes past the previous hour. So the FAA will give you this observation on the test, and they'll ask you, what time in Zulu time did that rain begin? And one of the options they're going to give you is 1935, and one is 1835. 1835 is correct, and here's the reason. The time of the Midway observation is the 12th day of the month at 1856 Zulu. Now, the observer knew that the rain began 35 minutes past the previous hour, and if this observation was made at 1856, then it has to have begun raining at 1835 Zulu. It can't be 1935, can't possibly be that, because that would be the future, and that hasn't happened yet.